Oh, there's Matt. Okay, good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started. My name is John Shear. I'm the Clifton Park Town Historian, Saratoga County, and I'm going to be introducing today's speaker. The topic is creating your digital resource library. And our speaker is Mary Cascone. And Mary has worked for the town of Babylon since 2006. And she was appointed town historian in 2014. Her projects for the town of Babylon have included 7 local history books. Wow. Creation of the town of Babylon History Museum, restoration of the United States Life-Saving Station at Oak Beach, installation of over 20 historic markers, and she has contributed to local history topics for local news outlets, newsletters, and podcasts. She received distinction as an AFNI's registered historian in 2018. So without further ado, Mary, take it over. Yes, I meant the fact there are handouts up here if you didn't get them for the program. So they're up here on this tables.
Thank you, John. And yes, the handouts here, every link that you see in this presentation is in the handouts. I've done the notes for you. So then you can just write directly on there. And we have, do we have the link? Yes. If you are joining us virtually, in the chat, Matt is adding the link to the Google Drive where all 3 of these handouts are located. So it's, I've presented to AFNI's before, and you're all such a nice group, but it doesn't keep me from getting nervous about presenting to any group. I don't care if it's 5 people or 100. And as I'm sitting at home going, okay, you know, I'm going to present on something that I just do without thinking, but how do I put it together to explain it to people? So I had my question of why? Why am I doing this? My research style revolves around overthinking and second guessing. It can make me annoying, but my research holds up. I'm obsessed with having access to all information sources. If someone comes to me and says, Dalton Point was created in 1929 by the Dalton family, I want to know all and any historical books, newspapers, maps that mention Dalton Point. I want to become the expert. I used to be a paralegal, and I know that my response to the lawyers would never be, I don't know. It was always, I'll find out. I learned that research should answer the question asked, but if the answer is insufficient, I should be able to explain every place I looked to exhaust where to find this information. Some of our constituents think that they're experts on local history topics because they Googled it. But in my experience, there is only a fraction of accurate local history information available through a Google search. But that does not mean that there is not a lot of local history information online. So I'm hoping that this obsessive amount of work here will help you do the same. Not become obsessed, do your work. I'll leave the obsessed to me. So recently, a lot of people needed to work from home. Some of you have been working from home already. I am fortunate to work full-time as a historian and have an office and even have a part-time staff. But that doesn't help you when suddenly you have to go home and all those lovely books that are sitting on your shelf are sitting there. I can actually see my office from my home, and from the porch of work, I can see the roof of my house, but I couldn't get into the building for over 6 months. And we may have those, you know, wonderful atlases from the 1870s, but they get to a point where you can't just very quickly thumb through them or let other people do it. So hopefully this will provide you some new resources. Many books and atlases I've found are written more on a county level. So I do encourage you to collaborate with someone. This is, is someone in your county, someone in your region, the materials that you find for you are going to typically apply to your adjacent county or communities as well. So do collaborate. I have started sharing this with my Nassau and Suffolk County colleagues on Long Island. I've been breaking it up in different parts for our regional meetings. So don't expect to do this all at once. These are just recommendations, but my professional life is basically right here, okay? A 1 terabyte drive is decent for anybody. Again, the links are there. No, I don't work for Amazon, but for $60, you can not only have the external hard drive, but also the carrying case to keep everything safe. And I'm glad I put that reminder on there. A lot of the things here I utilize with Adobe Acrobat. And if you're not familiar with Adobe Acrobat, that's pretty much the full version of Adobe for PDF. It goes beyond the reader. This is where you can make comments and you can combine your pages and things like that. I find it extremely useful. When I got a new laptop, I made sure that I got this. Don't let anybody try to convince you that Foxit is the same thing, because it is not. It is extremely annoying. A couple of people obviously have tried it. Look, my cards are up here. If I say anything here that you want more clarification on later, feel free to email me. Okay. This one, I think a lot of people, have at least found 1 or 2 books. Where do I find books? And I'm talking about digital books that you can download the copies of. And I heard somebody talking about OCR before this workshop began. Optical character recognition. This is where you have the computer read the book for you so that you can search for every time that the name Elijah and all of its different spellings appear in the book, because you're looking for that one person. So let's go through these. No. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. Here's a history of Long Island from its first settlement by Europeans to the year 1845, with special reference to its ecclesiastical concerns by Nathaniel S. Prime. And here's a copy of the front cover. So we're going to go through some of the places that you might find these and what works better than others. A regular Google search for books really doesn't stand up, okay? And you may not be able to read it here, but my search term for each of my examples was, I took the title of the book, History of Long Island, and then I added Nathaniel Prime. Now, we've had several books titled History of Long Island, and I'm sure that that's been repeated for you guys as well. But here, what you get are the Amazon hits. You do get Google Books, you get Library of Congress, but then down at the bottom, there's Abe Books. There's another bookseller. So how can we make your searches a little more efficient? You can go to Google Books. How do you find Google Books? Just go into Google and type Google Books, and you'll get a new search engine. This way, you will find PDF copies, but you don't always find a copy of the book. Sometimes it's just a listing. Okay, we're gonna get better as I give you the examples, but Google Books is perfectly fine. You cannot download all of them, but you can search right there. Okay, you may click on it and it'll search it for you, but you won't always be able to download a copy to your hard drive. Okay, RefSeek. I never knew about this until the Corning, when was Corning? 2014, I think. There was a gentleman who presented on his research, and he introduced me to RefSeek, which I have used ever since. It's just another search engine, but this time it's going to take out Amazon and Abe Books and things like that. You will see that the top 4 results were ads, because they do need to sustain themselves. But once you get past that, they're all more of your nonprofit and academic sites. I'm going to get to the downloading in a moment. Path I Trust. This one is a little bit more academic. It's good. I've found great things on here. You can typically search them. There are fewer that you can download. Very often they want you to put in what institution you're affiliated with, but it tends to be universities. And I know that as public historians, that's not usually us, but sometimes what happens is that by using their search, you find a great book. Oh, I can't download it, but now you have the title and you can search it somewhere else. WorldCat, I've never seen a downloadable book through WorldCat, but WorldCat is what gets you to take the title and where it can be found down to your public librarian, who will then get the physical copy for you, which is how I got this wonderful picture of Reverend John Quincy Adams many years ago. You get the book. Sometimes you have to pay like an $8 shipping fee or something like that, depending on your library. But then you get the book for 2-3 weeks and you can do what you need. You might even be able to copy what you need from it. This is really, WorldCat is really intended to show you where you can go to find it. So, oh, I can't read that. It just lists all the university libraries where these can be found. Okay, so now this is the one. This is the one that I want everyone to be introduced to. Internet Archive. It's my happy place. This is not only a great collection, you can read it and search it online. You can do all your keyword filters, and the results are available in not just PDF download, you can download it in a Kindle version, okay? So let's bear with me. Okay, we're going to go back to Internet Archive in a moment, but your other option is to also create a new scan, okay? Another department moved out of my building and I still have their giant copier with feeder and 11x17 flatbed scanning capability. I'm quietly keeping it in my office until someone realized that, you know, such a very valuable resource is in the historian's office. So I'm doing everything I can while I have it. I'm so happy to see the smiling faces out there because you understand. You find a resource and you're not letting it go. I am guilty of taking apart books. I'm sorry for anyone who's disappointed in me. I'm only dismantling books that is my second copy. I'm actively looking for battered books of titles, and I'm taking them apart and I'm putting them through that feeder like mad. If the paper is stable, I heard book scanners, that's great. I don't know that I'm going to get my hands on one of them soon, but I'm doing whatever I can with flatbed and feeder scanners. And then using that Adobe PDF, you can take that scan, you can write all the pages in case you had to scan them upside down, and you can do that OCR, that optical character recognition. So now when I scan that book that's about Suffolk County, I can find every time the word Babylon is in there. Okay, so, all right, I have this PDF, whether I've downloaded it or I've made it myself. Now, what do? You have in the handouts something that at the top left corner, it talks about sample for the AFNI's conference. That's an example of the lists that I make, starting with books, and then it goes into maps, and then it goes into newspapers. You're going to see that I have the PDF copies of these, but I also need to indicate what's the full title, when was it published, where did I find it? And I do have hyperlinks in my handout I have in the list that I use, but it just happens that sometimes those links go bad, okay, because they update or they reorganize or something like that. So that's why it's important to me that I do keep all of that information. On Long Island, I don't know if other places have this, but we have like a book that was written in 1838. It was 1 volume. And then 10 years later, the same man published it in 2 volumes. And then probably 50 years after he died, somebody else did it in 3 volumes. They're all the same title, but they're very different books. And so I try to keep track of that as well. Oh, here's the example showing. I have started dividing up the books by New York State, or at least for my region, by New York State, and then what's Nassau and Suffolk counties. The footnotes that are in there, just to let you know, I keep all of the full URLs at the end of it, just in case it's not working. And this is a copy of my file folder where I have all of those PDFs. I tend to keep them organized by year, then title, then author. And then the way that I shared them with the people in my region is I created a Google Drive, and or I set up a whole new Google account. I now run li.historians@gmail.com, but I'm not using it as an email. I did it simply so that I could create a Google Drive and share folders with my fellow historians. And what we're really trying to do is I said, hey, this is what I've done. What do you guys have? And what can you add in here? And I was very happy because the first time I sent out the list, I had 3 new suggestions to add to it and to share with everyone else. And again, because the websites are updated, the links change. When I download that PDF, okay, I put not only do I save it the way I showed you, at the bottom of the file using the footer function in Adobe Acrobat, I add the date that I accessed it and the full URL. Because what's going to happen is that I'm now going to share it with somebody else. And now I have where it came from on the bottom of every page, because we get asked for, I just want to know about this town or this one subject, and you won't have to go back and figure out where you got it from. Pretty much everything that I find is out of copyright. Okay, I'm talking about all this pre-1927 stuff, but protect yourself by indicating where you got it from if you're going to share it with somebody else. Now, my example here on Long Island, we have the Long Island Railroad, the oldest railroad in the United States, still operating under its original charter. I've been taught to say that. And because we had the railroad, which was originally designed to ship goods from New York City to Boston, but by the time they finished the railroad, yes, they were to be put on a boat at the end of the island and then shipped to Boston. I should clarify that. But by the time that they actually finished the railroad, somebody else had figured out how to navigate the hills of Connecticut. And so it wasn't going to work as a shipping railroad anymore. So what did they turn it into? They wanted to promote real estate and tourism on Long Island. And this goes back to 1870. So the railroad is the one that would publish summer homes on Long Island. You wouldn't want to live on Long Island. Who would want to live out in that wilderness in 1870, 1880? If you're sensible, you're going to live in New York City. And so the idea was live in New York City, but have a summer place out on the island. We get into the 1920s housing boom that we had, and they were promoting real estate that was within a reasonable distance of a railroad station to get you to that job in New York City, but to leave the wife and kids on, out on the island. So because of that, we have great resources in these travel booklets. And the way that I've been able to use these is that this is a great advertisement for the Hathaway Inn in Amityville. Yes, the same place as the Amityville Horror House. And yes, I can pass by it anytime I want, but they don't like that. And one of the things that would happen at the back of these railroad books is that they would give you the full train schedule. This is how you get there. And then once you get there, this is where you should stay. This is buried in things that people threw away. So every one of them that we find is fantastic, because I haven't even heard of some of these places. These aren't all hotels. Sometimes it's, stay at the Widow Jones's house. She has rooms for rent and it tells you how much. This is invaluable information, and we only found it through these travel guides. You never know what you're going to find. So the picture on the right was something of a holy grail for my predecessor. He remembered as a kid there being this windmill at the end of what is now Windmill Avenue. I'm sorry, Tom, I've never seen anything. Everyone he ever spoke to, he didn't find it. I stumble across Long Island Sources, published in 1912. It was a survey of how to take the water from Suffolk County and pipe it to New York City. It didn't actually happen, but this 2-volume survey is full of these photograph plates, and it included the windmill on August Belmont's property, as in the guy who was into horse racing. And when I showed this to Tom, it's like, oh my goodness, where did you find it? I'm like, well, you wouldn't believe this. I just stumbled across it. So sometimes even those reports, this very municipal, let's move water from one place to another, has great picture plates in it. Okay, so trying to search for yourself, and Dorothy from the town of Clay, you can see that I was thinking of you because you're right at the top. If I try, if I try to search for the town of Clay, and we're actually going to go into the Internet Archive in a moment, you're not going to find something, okay? And I won't find Town of Babylon in the earlier texts that are there. It's better to search by your county. Okay, then because that's what the subject headings are going to be. So instead, if I search for Onondaga County, then once I have the book, then I can search for Clay. Okay, just to give you an idea, just putting the name Poughkeepsie into Internet Archive gives you over 1,000 texts, and Oswego gives you at least 5,000. So let's give me 1 second. You tell everybody that's so easy to do, and you put up the link. I know it hasn't changed for you yet. Okay. All right, welcome to the Internet Archive. At our table at dinner last night, we were talking about the Wayback Machine. So I don't know if anybody's here from that last night. So of course, it's a little confusing because the Wayback Machine search bar is up at the top. But if you just come down here to the middle, so if I put in Town of Clay, be one thing. Okay. And they're not just books here. You will find videos and audio recordings and everything like that. So we tried Clay, but let's now try Onondaga. And I'm going to add the word county. And I haven't used quotes because, of course, how is it? Is it Onondaga County or is it County of Onondaga? You would want to search both ways. But now I get almost 1,500 results. And on the left, now I can say that I'm just looking for texts. And you can start to refine your search a little bit. But I get down here, and here is an 18. I think that's 1868 Gazetteer Business Directory for Onondaga County. These are great. You can find advertisements for businesses from then. Usually what will happen is that there will be, no matter what the size of your community, as long as you're in Onondaga County, that you will find a listing of business owners, and then it'll have addresses, and you just never know what you're going to find. But when you here in Internet Archive, here are all your download options. Okay. And PDF is right there at the side. Hovering over it, it does tell me that it's nearly 41 megabytes. Yeah, it does get large, but this is something that we have to invest in, the space, because I know that I have books that sit on the shelf, and yes, I've gone to them and I've found information, but now being able to keyword search that same book, now I find that because I would only ever look at the Town of Babylon chapter. right? But now I can find that maybe that same person did something in the town of Smithtown, but I'd never thought to look in that chapter before. And these are 1,000-page books, you know, not bedtime reading either. So this is why I just love Internet Archive, and you'll see a lot of references to it from me. Any questions so far? Yeah.
Is there a way or method that we can then add our own scans and such or processes to these resources for others?
That is a fantastic question. I don't know. But there has to be. Yes. Oh, he wanted to know, thank you, Matt. He wanted to know if there was a process by which we can take our scans and add them to Internet Archive or Google Books or something like that. I don't know the process. I would probably go to my local library council or something. We have the Long Island Library Resource Council or Consortium, and I would find out if they wanted to add it. We also have several universities on the island, and I've seen their names that, like SUNY Stony Brook has added things from their libraries, and maybe I might make a recommendation to them to find out. Matt, I think we had another question that was right over here. Oh, thank you. All right. I've said this before. What are some of the downsides of finding these books online? Maybe the book wasn't great to begin with. Maybe it was that thing that was written in 1905 by perhaps a well-meaning person that you have spent most of your career debunking everything that's in that book. But there's that person, there's that constituent who suddenly found it online, and they just have to let you know because you missed it, because you never mention it. I believe that even the bad stuff, we have to know what's out there so that we can incorporate the good stuff, and that we do have to be prepared for the 3 C's to correct, clarify, or challenge that new information. All right, maps. If you try to Google for a map, through Google Images, you are not going to get what you want. You might find a map, but you're not going to get that resolution. I've had history students who have interned in my office, and I've begun to say that, and this is no offense to any history students or anybody else, but there's a difference between studying history and it's like flying over the village of Babylon in a helicopter. But local history is knowing what happened on each street corner and walking through the doors. And so I've had to kind of get them to rethink. No, that generalization isn't good enough. I need to answer the who, what, where, and when, and why. Because those are the questions that people that live in those communities want from me. So we're going to go through the better places to look for them. Okay, the New York Public Library has added so many new things. We're going to go over a New York Public Library card, which is open for every resident within the state of New York for free. Okay. And I will say that 15 years ago, I couldn't find any of this stuff. Okay, I couldn't find a lot of this stuff 5 years ago. These institutions have been adding new things in the past couple of years. So we're going to try this link. There it is. All right, so this is the New York Public Library's digital collection. This is where you could start. You could put in your town's name. Again, I recommend county because very few atlases would have been, there's no atlas that was ever published for the town of Babylon, but it was done for Suffolk County. It was done for Long Island, which includes Brooklyn and Queens and Nassau County and Suffolk County. All right. But I've included for you a link that goes directly to the New York State and New York City maps that are on the New York Public Library. And this is 2,300 images, all right? It's, again, search for the words that are unique to your community. But if you come down here, yeah, would this be a good one? Here is a map of the state of New York. This is 1838, but it comes from a larger book. And I go from the 2,300 images to now just the 154 that appear in this book. And on that first page, you're going to get your date, you're going to get your author information, your publisher. So let's do one of these. Now, this zoom is pretty good. Nope, I picked a bad one. Here we go. This is what I'm trying to show you. This is about getting down to the street level, and you can download a copy to your computer where you're not going to have to go through all the links. This is all free access. So how do you get it onto your computer or your hard drive? Okay. Right here, you have the option for what format you want to put it in. You got small, large, larger, original, high resolution TIFF format. Yes, it's going to take a few minutes to download. Yes, it's going to take up a lot of space, but again, that's why you want that external hard drive. Get the highest resolution that you can. You won't regret it. Okay. If it downloads into a TIFF format, trying to make this less complicated. As a TIFF, I can go out and go into a Town of Babylon map, and I could just carve out using Adobe Photoshop, I can carve out a 4:6 image of just Copeg. But if I take this large size format and I convert it into a PDF, I can kind of do a quick select and carve out that little bit, which I can pop right into a PowerPoint presentation. I know it sounds a little complicated. It's a lot easier if I ever show you. But again, you're not going to regret having the highest resolution that you can. You can always make it smaller for other uses, but have that larger one. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. I set this up for the links to work right from the PowerPoint. It wasn't quite working out, but okay, so we went to the link at the top. That was the general one. And then the one on the bottom, maps of New York City and New York State. That's what we just went into and saw those 2,300 images. And again, you locate the image, choose the largest file. I name them by year and location. And then I, just like those, I keep a list of the maps by the year and the atlas name in case I need to reference it. Yes.
Sorry, quick question. Back on the webpage and everything, it said order sign or order. What was that?
You can order a print, like on the website, it said order, it said print. You can order prints from New York Public Library. Okay. And these are, and I have no idea how much they charge, but if you ever did want a printout, note the map name, and you can go to something like art.com or posters.com, because any of these things that are free on Library Congress, there are people out there who are making money by selling these. And they're beautiful, they're framed, and the color has been corrected on it, and it doesn't look like that faded copy that you've had in your office. But no, everything that I just showed you there and downloading it, that is free. If you are asked for money for anything that I've shown you, you clicked on something else. I just want to assure you that. Yes.
Buying something from the New York Public Library, file was too big, and I then had to put it in a thumb drive. But now I've got 3 thumb drives for the documents. Another way to do something with it.
Okay,
thumb drive.
she bought something from New York Public Library. You paid for a scan,
Correct.
but then it was really large.
The file was so large.
The file was so large. And how did you get the thumb drive to them? You had to pay for a thumb drive?
No, they sent it in a link that I had 7 days to download.
Okay, all right. They sent her a link that where she had 7 days to download this file. Okay, because this thing was probably 50 megabytes,
Yes.
large. Okay, and you transferred it to a thumb drive. If you were to transfer it to an external hard drive, something that's 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes, it would have happened very quickly, and you would have been able to avoid that thumb drive. Yes. Yes, what you can do is that all those, and I got a little basket on my desk of those thumb drives too. And you take those and just download them, onto your external hard drive. Yes, this does happen. This is why I learned about using the Google Drives to share information, because the file sizes were just too large to be emailing. And for those of us under municipal email, they're trying to limit it all the time, what we can send out and take in. Okay. Okay, Library of Congress. There's no library card or registration for what's on Library of Congress. Unique names like Ulster or Onondaga are great for this. Sometimes things like, I know that in the past, one of our towns, Smithtown, was sometimes done as 2 words, Smith space town. So keep that in mind. Again, I recommend searching the word county. There's a Suffolk County in Massachusetts. So once I go outside of New York, I have to search Suffolk County and why. I don't know, how are we doing time? I'm going to skip going to the Library of Congress site for the moment. But again, those are my recommendations. Does everybody know what Sanborn maps are? Raise your hand if you've never heard of it. Okay, quickly. Sanborn maps were fire insurance maps. Yeah, Sanborn Insurance Company. And many years ago, our regional library consortium had paid for, or my local library had paid for access to this Sanborn database. This had to be like 7 years ago. And I was using somebody else's card, and I sat in my office until 7 o'clock downloading every Sanborn map because I was afraid I was going to lose this link. About 12 years ago, my predecessor had looked into how much it would cost to get copies of Sanborn maps for our town, and they were quoting us at $5,000. So I really thought that this was something I was never going to have access to, okay? And I really didn't know how many years were available. There are 2 different sites that I have located for finding Sanborn maps for free, but they each have a certain restriction. The ones on New York State Library are wonderful. You can find all of them, but they're all in black and white at the moment, okay? And you do need a New York State Library P borrower's card. The application is here, and I will explain that when we get to maps. All right. So.
This is the free link for the
Yes. There we go. All right. So now we are in the databases and e-journals listed by subject. This is on the New York State Library website. Now, yes, this is free, but you've got to get your library card first. All right. So by going down to the history section, at the bottom of the list, Sanborn maps. Oh, good. I was going to say I put my password in there last night. All right, so you can dive in and explore. They only have New York State available, but now you choose your city. Somebody here from Marion? Yeah? There we go. Here's Marion, and they have 4 dates available. Here's September 1915. It is 3 sheets. Okay, and this is great. Here's the Wayne County Canning Company. If you have never been able to get really close into these, you're really missing out, because this is where you find out that this electric plant had a wood floor. And there's so many different things that are in here. It's going to tell you the materials that the building is made of. Except for businesses, they really don't list homeowner names. So that person that's trying to find out the previous owners of their house, they might have difficulty here. And the earliest ones, so for me, we have a village of Babylon and a town of Babylon. And I represent the town, but I live in the village. And in the earliest ones show, I don't know, maybe 1 street intersection, the one from 1888, and it's 2 pages. By the time we get to 1943, we've got 23 pages. So what kept happening is that they kept expanding the area that they were doing the maps for as they were ensuring more homes. It is extremely frustrating that, the thing that you're looking for is a block north of whatever they did in the maps. So, but it is what it is. Okay, so that's New York State Library.
There's an actual fire on January 21st, 1911. Do they tell the fire, do they somewhere in there tell about the fire, what went on or not?
She's going to repeat that question.
Please wait until we get you a microphone.
I'm Town of Canaan historian, and I'm looking for a fire, and the fire took a historical building and a very interesting story behind it. So does the insurance company at some point, if there was a fire on January 21st, 1911, record it in there or not?
I don't think so. Oh, but Matt might have more info.
No, but if it happened in 1911 and you have a 1910 map and a 1915 map, in many cases, you'll see it before, and then you'll see the empty space where it will say something like lost by fire 1911 or something along those lines. In a place that has lots of fires, they tended to do that. So it's kind of fun. So in a very negative way. But yes, they don't give you any direct information, but you can get information gleaned from it. Wait.
Sorry about that, Matt. You can also use this to date your house.
Yes.
I did not know when my house was built. I only guessed, but I took 2 of the maps. It was in between the maps. It was 1911, I found out, but they're good for that too.
They're excellent for that. And why it might not tell you the exact year, you can narrow it down to it was between these six years. She's doing great.
Just a quick question. Was Sanborn actually the insurance company, or were they just a mapping service that worked for the insurance company? They are. Are they still in business?
They are, Sanborn Insurance Company apparently is the insurance company and still exists.
I lost my train of thought. I had something else. Oh, if you're a tiny rural community like a hamlet, sometimes they would do that. We have a place called Brookfield where I'm from that never had a map except in Sanborn for 2 different years. So don't be afraid if you're small, you might still have one.
And sometimes they're attached at the end of somebody else's. We have barrier beaches on the south side of Long Island. And in 1929 and 1943, they actually added them on, but they're at the back of the village of Babylon map. So do kind of look around, cast a wider net, because you know what, it's free. Now, Sanborn maps are now also available through Library of Congress. And they are available in color, but not all the years. Okay, so like I can't find, I think after 1915 in color on Library of Congress, but I do have the black and white copies that I got from the state library. And so this is the list of, and it's on 2 pages, but these are the lists of all of the counties in New York that they have. So if I go into, and they're not alphabetical, which is really annoying. So if I go into Suffolk County, it's going to give me, sorry, the cursor just keeps like leaving me. Oh, you guys can't even see it. Forgive me. There you go. Okay, so these are all the New York counties that they have the Sanborn maps for. All right. It's on more than 1 page. So when I go into Suffolk County, I've got Amagansett and Sayville. You know, there's one from Babylon. There's the 1885. That's just 2 images. So when I go into, and when it comes to downloading these, and I didn't indicate it on New York State Library, but when you download these, you have to download each page individually. But it's worth it. And for me, I know that it's worth it because we have a very famous hotel known as the Argyle. And here's the Argyle. It lists the dining hall and where the kitchen is and, you know, all the different sections. Sometimes it'll tell you the height of the ceilings and what it's made of. And in addition to that, the hotel here, we have these little buildings around which were known as the cottages. You could stay at the hotel or you could rent a cottage, and some of those cottages still exist as residential houses. So you're gonna see this later on in my presentation, but we have a motto in our office. We never know what we're going to find until we look. You know, somebody says, can you answer this question? And I'm like, I can't tell you, but I never know until I look. You know, give me some time. I'll go through all the resources. And Matt, there's a question right back here.
Not a question. I don't think you said the reason that you'd want to get these in color is because they have a key on them that's colored. And that tells you some more information about what the materials are, what kind of water service they have, all sorts of things. But I know for certain that you got them in black and white, you don't get all that information.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think schools have one color, churches have a color.
And then green means it's gonna burn fast.
Made of wood much?
No, normally it's linseed oil factories,
Okay.
oil facilities. It's gonna burn fast.
Just one quick comment. It also sometimes designates the race of the church. For instance, if it's an African-American
Yes, it's true.
church, in the parlance of the time, it would say a Negro church and stuff like that, which
Yes.
is really important if you're, you know, getting into African-American history.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And these aren't technically maps, but because I found this, I really have to share with all of you. I don't know how familiar you are with Family Search. It's the LDS website. It's the free version of the non-ancestry. Okay. This website can be extremely hard to navigate, which I was really glad when I was introduced to the link. Okay, but you've all been to your county clerk to look up a deed and gone through the physical books. And if you're familiar with the indexes, the grantor grantee indexes, okay. This is for Suffolk County, it's what I get by driving an hour to there and know that they're going to close by 4 digitally. It's all of it, but only up to 1900. Okay, so for a lot of my search areas, this is fine. These are all the counties that they have that they have information for. Here is Suffolk. And so here are all the deeds. I go to the end of the third list, and I've got the grantor grantee indexes. And you have to look at what your county, what is up there for your county. Now, remember, you may be familiar with the grantee book and you know that the information that you want is on page 50, but there are 2 pages on each digital page. So it takes a little while to figure out. But if I jump here to page 50, so there we go. January 1872, John D. Norton, purchased from Eliza Hulse, and then that's book 182, Liber 182, page 465. And then book 182, I can come back out here to the list. And here's 182. They're not always chronological, but here's the full book. It's some hunting and pecking. You can zoom in. This download over here at the top right, this will download a JPEG for you, okay? But it's a really big JPEG. Its print size is like 24 inches wide. But you're viewing it on your screen, and usually from your Windows photo viewer, you can print it to a PDF that say is like a tabloid size or whatever works for you. But the important thing is you can see this. When you are downloading a copy of the deed, remember that it appears on several pages. You probably have to download more than one. And learn from my mistakes. Make sure you're labeling each photo because you get confused. And here it's telling us what the pages are, but it's not. It doesn't say that this was book 182, and that's information that I would be missing if I don't put it down. There are lots of other things that are on Family Search. I have not explored them, largely because this has been keeping me busy, and it's amazing what I've been able to pull out through here. So I hope you have fun with it too. Okay, this is, their counties, do they have a GIS website? I tried to search for a few outside of Suffolk County. You're Madison County, right, Matt? Okay. Geographic Information System. It's your tax maps. Okay. So when I go into the one for Suffolk County, and all right. We're going to get rid of this annoying box over here. So welcome to Suffolk. This is why I have a mouse. All right. All right. Welcome to COPEC. Here, I have the option. Supposedly, our county planning department, every 10 years, starting in 1920, did aerial images. Okay, and if you look at the edges of the county, you can actually see that this is put together with rectangular photographs. These are the images that they took from airplanes and stitched together. Every now and then we'll find a hole in the aerial images because obviously the pictures got missed or lost. But here is 1947. All right, and down at the bottom left corner is the Great Neck Road School, which I happened to research in depth when my son was a student there. And you can see a lot of trees. Now, we jump instantly from 1947 to 1962. And at the far right now, we can see that there's a second school. Okay, Great Neck Road is still there. And now we have the Scudder Avenue School over on the right side. Now we can jump to 1978. And there's a school in between them. I now have 3 schools. The one in the middle is Susan Wiley. I hovered over the area that I want, and then I'm able to just jump from image to image. Now, if I come to today, that school on the right is gone. It's now condominiums, but I still have the other two. I can download image files of this. I can download PDF files of this over under my print button. It takes a moment, but you can say you want JPEG, PNG, you know, whatever is here, a TIFF file. You can say what size of paper you want, whether you want it portrait or landscape. It takes, for me, it takes a little bit to, when I'm trying to get the images in, because remember, when I'm over here in this map, I'm zoomed in there, but my next click back is a little bit further than I would like. And it takes some playing with it. But if 10 years ago, I knew that the old photos existed, but you had to go out to the county center and make an appointment with someone and tell them exactly what you wanted. But how do you know what you want until you know what they have? So I'm hoping that this is the direction that all of your counties are headed into. And I did, when I searched GIS and planning in counties, you know, for New York, I saw that many of them are moving towards that. So hopefully they're going to think of adding their historical images. All right, we'll get to the last section, newspapers. There are several newspaper sources. I'm not going to go through Fulton History, although I've given you the links there because they do have an alternate browser now that doesn't require Flash. So if you had trouble using Fulton History before, you may want to try this new link. I know that there are also regional libraries that have put together newspapers, like our Lindenhurst Library recently digitized some microfilm from the 20s to the 50s, but they have not added it to, you know, New York State newspapers. I don't know if they're planning to, but it's something that's just hosted on their website. So New York State Library, this is where we're going to look at that P borrower's card. Again, why? No, we're not going to go look at it. You have the application. That's what I gave you as a handout. You do need to provide that letter or that resolution that shows that you were appointed a public historian. But because you get and it's specifically municipal historians that are entitled to this P borrower's card, take advantage of it. You do have to renew it every 2 years, but I think it's just affirming that you're still the public historian. Okay, and you can see up at the top here that they say there's a regular New York State Library borrows card starts with. No, there are, that's what it, R is the resident one. Thank you very much. So coming down again, we can go to history. And we have the Sanborn maps, and we have some other newspaper access. The ones that are here are available other places as well. Library of Congress. Just gonna go that one. Okay, with Library of Congress, it's called Chronicling America. And this is from every state. All right, of course, they're starting there with Alabama. But if you go into this third tab, all digitized newspapers, you can come down to New York. And they have 20. Okay, and while some of these are also available from New York Public Library that we'll see, every now and then you have a unique one. And I want to explain that there's more than just these, because they also have 41 Connecticut newspapers, 2 from Massachusetts, Vermont, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. So anyone who is adjacent to other states, I know that I find some of my things reported in Connecticut. We're separated by a body of water, but there was just enough travel between the two. Again, start casting a wider net for where you might find information. And I hope that you have a unique name. Babylon is pretty good, except that in New York Public Library, I have to sort out all the ancient Babylon stuff. But we do have several unique names in our town, but we have a deer park, and there's also a deer park that's upstate, and there is a Deer Park, Maryland, and one in Texas. And I know someone who works at the Deer Park Library on Long Island, and they actually get calls from Texas. People think that they called their local library, and that's what happens with the smartphones that you just Google it, and then you hit the button, and you don't realize that you've now made a long distance phone call. So, Brooklyn Daily Eagle. Why in the world am I telling people from across New York State to focus on New York City? Well, you got to think beyond. Brooklyn Daily Eagle reports a lot, or reported a lot, from all over the state. If you put in the word Oswego, you get over 16,000 matches. If you have that weird thing, that person baked in an oven, you got to ask Matt about that. There's a chance that was repeated around the state, around the region, around the country. And go look for those things, because I find it really neat to find the thing that happened in my community reported in Chicago. And I like to show that to other people. And Matt's going to explain here now.
To be fair, it was just their hearts.
You didn't say that. I heard they were baking in the oven.
No, just their hearts.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's more practical as far as baking dishes are concerned. I'm all about practicality. All right, you're making me skip here. All right, so Brooklyn Daily Eagle. Again, this is free. Don't be concerned about the fact that it's a newspapers.com site. When you go in through this link, this is all free. Yes, sign up, but it's just putting in an email and a password so that you can save your clippings. Here's a look at my clippings, my 1,582 clippings, because I'm really bad at clearing it out. Be better than me and add a subject into it, because then you can search them. All right. But they've recently updated this. So if I put in my new favorite word, Onondaga, I can now just search 1900 to 1910, which was not as easy before. And it brings us down to 625. I have 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna speed up a little bit. So do check it out. You can click on it, and then you can use this little clip tool. And you go like this, and you choose it. And now I've saved clipping 1,583. All right. New York Public Library. So. All right, to get your library card, you're going to go to the link. This is not one that I could download, but just getting started, they're just asking you for your information. You're going to go through. This one does not require your resolution as public historian or anything like that. Do unclick here if you don't want to get all their emails. But with this library card, what can you do now? Well, you're going to end up with a barcode and a password. And I've given you a link into the 122 newspaper databases that you will be able to search when your internet is. I keep clicking on databases and it's not, oh, there it is. It's not showing up on mine. Okay, so usually what happens when I do mine is I unselect these all, but I go down to New York Times, New York Amsterdam News, which is the historically Black paper from New York City, the New York Tribune, and the New York Tribune Herald Tribune, but I can also come down here and I can add in the US Northeast collection. We've got Toronto, we have Connecticut. I'm sorry, I didn't identify what section perhaps Northern New York newspapers might be. But now you can go in and you can search just like any other ProQuest database that you've been on, but this is free. And with that library card, you can work from anywhere. Having that library card is what gives you the remote access. Okay. So here was that slide for them. Okay, so we went into the library card. I showed you that database that with the 122, but I've also given you a link because if you've ever been frustrated by going into ancestry.com or other places and you think, oh, that's a great thing, but now I have to subscribe to newspapers.com. Not everything on the whole world of newspapers.com is available through here, but there are at least some, and you can choose the state that you want to search in, and then you can break it down by region. So again, that free library card is giving you this access. And I'm sorry, I don't remember how often that renews, but I was able to renew mine by email. So it was a fairly easy process. So my last slide here is an example of how all of this has helped me. Here is an excerpt from History of Suffolk in 1882. And you don't really need to read it. You just need to understand that it says about 1856, Mr. Sammis chartered this boat to start a ferry service. He wrote about 1856. In 1949, in a book called Long Island, A History of Two Great Counties, the writer said it was in 1856 that Sammis opened this first successful ferry. Okay, we've gone from saying it's about to in. Now I do newspaper research and I find that it was in 1859. That first author saying about had the right idea. What happens is that because we're told don't plagiarize, put things into your own words, people take that about and they turn it into in. And this is not the only example, but all of these things that you see on the screen came from putting together that digital resource library. So now I'm done. We have a couple minutes for questions, and Matt is going to bring that microphone right on over.
Jason Parkman, Town of Elbridge. One thing that I'm curious about is the organization of all your files. You talked about year, date, and the thing of the file names and everything and the title, but how about being able to have a database or cross-referencing so you know what each individual file references so you can quickly go like, okay, I want to know something about this hotel, boom, hotel, 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 versus having to go through every single saved newspaper article bit by opening each file you have.
This has shown you where I'm going to find the resources, but then I actually have a method where I take all these clippings and I put them in, I create my own research files. So Argyle Hotel, that one that I showed you in the Sanborn maps, I've pulled out the paragraphs that are from all those books that I found. I've taken all of the travel advertisements. I've found all of the newspaper articles. And then that's where I end up with my 30, 45 page Word documents that then put everything together. And at the end, I put all my maps. So yeah, that's a whole another crazy thing, but it works. It's taken me a long time, but that's how I'm finally doing it. Does that answer your question? Okay. Have fun. I hope you find lots of great stuff. You're welcome.